there! My name is Mira Scarlett, and today I'm going to show you how to make sewing patterns by tracing clothing that you already own. This method is super handy if you already like the fit of a garment that you have and you want to replicate it, or you want to use it as the base for a new outfit or a new cosplay. And in my case, it is for a new cosplay. It's also really helpful for beginners who may not own any sewing patterns, they may not have a dress form for draping, so it's a great way to learn the basics of clothing construction without having to spend money on those extra things for now. Plus, it's super easy to do, so let's go ahead and get started. To start, we're going to roll out the tissue paper or newspaper or whatever else you have at your disposal to trace our patterns onto. Today, I'm going to pattern Haruko's baseball outfit from Fooly Cooly. So depending on your project, you'll want to choose clothing that you already have that fits similar to the fit you're trying to achieve. I'm using a pair of spandex shorts I made a while back and a comfortable fitting t-shirt. To make a pattern from these shorts, we start by folding the front of the shorts in half, being sure to match up all seams, the sides, waist, and crotch, so you get an accurate outline. Once everything is lined up and laying flat, you can trace around the shorts, creating a pattern for the front. Don't forget to add seam allowance. I added a ½ inch of seam allowance all around the edges that will be sewn. Now it's time to trace the back of the shorts. We are going to repeat the exact same steps we did for the front. Match seams, lay flat, trace around, and add seam allowance. Pretty easy, right? Once that's all done, cut both pieces out and you have the main parts of your shorts patterned. Now onto the waistband. The waistband is simply a rectangle. The top and bottom are your waist measurements cut in half, since it will be cut on the fold. And then the sides are whatever width you determine times 2, since it will be folded in half. My ruler happened to be close to the measurements I needed for my waistband, which was 17 inches by 3 inches, so I just traced around it. Don't forget to add seam allowance everywhere except for where you will cut on the fold. You now have successfully created a shorts pattern. Now onto the shirt. Grab your shirt and fold it in half in the front. Make sure to line up sleeves, neck, and sides. Trace around the side, bottom, and front. Using a sewing pin, poke along the armhole seam so that it pierces tiny holes into the paper underneath, effectively marking the curve for the armhole of our pattern. Do the same thing for the neckline. Now you can use those tiny holes as a guide and trace the curve onto our pattern. Mark a reminder to cut on the fold along the center front and then add seam allowance around the rest of the pattern. And that's it for the front. Once again, we are using the same process to pattern the back of the shirt. Now that the front and back pieces are done, you can leave them as is, no problem. But in my case, since I'm making a cosplay for Haruko, I'm going to try to mimic how her baseball shirt transitions from white in the middle to the red sleeves. I'm sure there's a proper word for this style of shirt, but I don't know what it is. I figured out where I wanted the red pieces to begin, marked it evenly on both patterns so that it would look nice and symmetrical, then cut along it. I used the red Sharpie as a reminder to add seam allowance to those edges when cutting my fabric later. The last part we're going to be patterning is the t-shirt sleeve. Take your paper and fold it in half. Grab your shirt and position the top of the sleeve along the fold line, right side up. Trace around the armpit and then use the same pin technique we used before to mark the armhole curve. Trace around the pinhole marks to get the armhole curve. Turn the shirt so the back is facing up and mirror the top of the sleeve with the pattern you just made and repeat the same steps. Next, figure out how long you want your sleeve to be and mark that measurement along the center fold. Then, determine the width of your sleeve. Find the center point and line it up with the end of the sleeve length we drew earlier, and draw that measurement. Now, line up the armhole edges and sleeve hem edges to finish the pattern. As always, don't forget that seam allowance. We have now successfully created patterns from our existing clothing. Let's see how it looks once all sewn together. And look at that, just the fit I was going for. What a simple way to make a copycat fit of your favorite casual clothing without trying to figure out tons of drafting measurements, draping, or messing with commercial patterns. And now that you have your pattern pieces created, you can cut them out of any fabric that you want, you can reuse them, and you can change them up in any way that you please. I also highly encourage you to get creative with your patterns and alter them in different ways, like changing the neckline or taking in the sides or extending the bottoms, anything that you want. If you're interested in more sewing and cosplay related content, consider hitting that subscribe button and maybe even the bell notification so that you will be notified every time that I upload a new video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!